Nobody actually teaches you how to survive your first real project, and that's exactly why some designers make it and some don't. So let's talk about how to be one of the ones who actually do make it. Hello designers, this is Angie from Ravenor's Design Academy, where interior design and project management marry and have a baby. I once had a renovation fit-out project that expanded from 2 months to almost a year. And looking back at it, there was nothing to be done differently that would have changed that timeline, since it was literally a series of unfortunate events that I could never prevent. And mind you, I had quite a few years of design and project management experience at that point, but by the end of it, I was glad I made it out with my sanity intact. Because projects like that are the definition of barely managed chaos. So if this scenario sounds even remotely familiar to you, well, you're not alone. Managing full projects as a freelancer can be smooth sailing boat, but it can also be a sailboat caught in a hurricane. Oh, and you're the captain.
Run.
And it's exactly why I still wonder, why aren't we prepared for this from the very beginning? I mean, the interior design industry is worth over $145 billion globally right now, and it's still growing, forecasted to grow by $220 billion in 2032. And unlike an industry like construction, it's not monopolized by a handful of giant firms. It's still controlled by the little guys, like you and me. And yet, design school curriculums are built around one expectation: that you'll graduate and walk straight into a big studio or corporate office.
Bruh.
Meanwhile, the reality, though, is that some of us are gig designers picking up single tasks online like a color consult or a full stylized layout. And that's a healthy part of the industry that keeps growing. But most of you watching this are the ones actually running the whole project. Doesn't matter if it's local or remote, design or design and build, but it's start to finish. The ones juggling deadlines, budgets, and suppliers even before breakfast. Holding it together even when it doesn't feel like it. I was lucky enough to land an internship that led to positions with connections and project management experience before I went solo. Others from my class, though, ended up freelancing by choice or by necessity. So, no matter how you got here, what matters next is that the kind of work you choose to take on, whether it's design only or design and build. And I've tried both. And both come with their own set of risks and rewards. Let's start with design only, which looks lower risk, but that's from the outside. And it doesn't mean it's risk-free. For example, without a clearly defined scope, there were revisions that ate my timeline alive, and the gig that was supposed to take 3 weeks turned into 3 months. But then again, I had the comfort of my own home to work from and the flexibility to work from anywhere, even from abroad. Now, design and build is where all the juicy exposure lived. First, I had the financial risk. If there were cost overruns, they came out of my profit and not the client's pocket. Then there was the legal and contractual side of it, which was basically paperwork, contracts, code compliance visits, and liability. I mean, need I say more?
Nope.
Last but not least, there was the operational risk that accumulated into either contractors who didn't live up to expectations, client contributions that didn't match my specifications, or a schedule that was never really flexible enough to begin with. Or all of the above. But hey, I'm not trying to scare or repel you. Design and build is one of the most lucrative business models out of the two, but without the flexibility and comfort of design only. All I want to say is that these paths have a problem in common. None of their risks are a design issue. Because as far as I know, a well-designed floor plan doesn't speed up a contractor's timeline, very much like how a gorgeous render doesn't stop scope creep. These are process problems that traditional design training can't solve. And I call that a capability gap. On one side, I had a curriculum that trained me to work in offices and studios, where there was a whole team standing behind a designer, from draftsmen to marketers, not to mention accountants and on-site project managers. On the other side was the reality of things, where I wasn't part of that world, whether that was opening a small studio with a couple of employees or flying completely solo. Access to these resources became harder, sometimes almost impossible. So whether I liked it or not, I was going to be wearing many hats because that's what a captain does on this ship. But hey, good news. Wearing many hats isn't as hard as it sounds, yet managing a project from design to handover is though. The capability gap that I mentioned a minute ago is not a talent problem, it's a skill problem. Who cares if they don't teach this in university, or maybe you're self-taught, which I think is awesome actually. I've come to realize that you can absolutely still acquire those skills. And that's exactly why I'm evolving this channel to match. So please subscribe. Oh, and in your experience, should interior designers formally be trained in project management or not? Drop a comment below, we should talk about this. But for now, thank you for watching. Until next time.